Ladies and gentlemen, it's the moment that we have all been waiting for. In less than 3 minutes, the Iowa Caucuses will kick off. The 2020 presidential Democratic nominating season will kick off with it, and we will finally see who will lead the Democratic Party, or at least get a bit of a glimpse of who's going to lead the Democratic Party forward into the fight against Trump. It's a big day, a lot of things at stake. Results about to come in. We will get you covered on it all. And first off, I think it's time for predictions. We'll have guests for you throughout the night. Working on obviously getting our elections mainstay, James Stanley, coming on the show. The Iowa Caucuses, yes, they are to begin momentarily. Caucuses across the country. But I am going to make some predictions, and I'm going to say that just based on the numbers, I think Bernie Sanders is going to win this. And I don't say that lightly, because if you have listened to a second of Newsflash, you're probably well aware. Follow my Twitter at SBW272, shameless self-promotion there. I am a big supporter of Senator Bernie Sanders. And, for example, I'm not going to tell you, Bernie Sanders is going to in the driver's seat in Carolina to win. Obviously not. That's not true. He's not. Joe Biden is in the driver's seat to win. But I think the way it works, and by the way, this is no complete destiny yet. Like, this is not set in stone. This is not by any means a completely ordained situation here. But it is very, very possible that we could see Bernie Sanders coming out and winning tonight. So yeah, we are just, again, about to be less than a minute away from getting the first result of the Iowa Caucuses, due to start at the top of the hour, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be getting the results for you and the pledged delegates. 200,000 people expect to participate in the Democratic Caucuses tonight. A problem is there's early entrance polls. People have been caucusing in Georgia, in France, and I mean Georgia, the country. So it's been really incredible to see how many people have been doing this. They're doing new sites, offshore sites for residents of Iowa who couldn't make it to Iowa. And yeah, and they're going to be releasing, if you haven't heard, they're going to be releasing the raw vote totals, the caucus totals, the pledged delegates, we're just moments away from the first delegates. It's now time. We're just moments away here from getting a key race alert. And that is what we will be reporting to you as soon as we can. All right, so here is our key race alert, folks. All right, so the early leaders in the Iowa caucus, this is no surprise. Looks like, according to CNN's entrance poll, Biden and Buttigieg will be the Biden, Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren for these 41 delegates are right now in the driver's seat to win at this point. So this is what they're hearing from voters on the way in at this point. They are looking for that. So let's take a look at the ideology here. Iowa, very liberal, 26%, somewhat liberal, 40%, moderate, 33%, and 1% say that they're conservative for the Democratic caucuses here. The very liberal, somewhat liberal, moderate, conservative. Those numbers are from the CNN entrance polls. And we will be talking about that as we get ready and closer to the results. Among the moderates, though, Joe Biden, no surprise, leading, 34%, 22% for Buttigieg, Klobuchar, 12%, and Sanders will be at 12% as well. So, yeah, that's some of the first results from Iowa expected in very, very soon. We'll give you the most that we can on that. And we're also, of course, working on James Stanley. So, yeah, Bernie Sanders. And the thing is, with these kind of self-identifying ideologies, it's like a lot of people say they're middle class. A lot of people say they're liberal. A lot of people say they're conservative. And a lot of people say they're independent. Like, people can't really be trusted, I think, because not everyone's going to be a poli-sci major. Like, that's just ridiculous. You can't really expect that. it's not really realistic. So people don't know the finer points of moderate and liberal, and those mean so many different things to different people. It's more about the policies. I think it's a much safer way to do it. Yeah, and it's really incredible. We're getting visuals in here of all these people lined up all across these little fields, astroturfed fields, where kids play soccer. Like, it's really, really funny. People in line waiting to register to vote, and that's the real crazy situation here, as we're looking for these first results and getting a little bit of how it could shake out. Iowans, yeah, they're just about to deliver this verdict as we wait for it. There's a funny picture of the New York Times. Ruth Fremson reporting from Des Moines, Iowa. Wendy Knowles says she was the only person at Tom Steyer's caucus section in Des Moines, saying, quote, "I may be the only one, but if people see the sign, they may come." And she's such a nice-looking old lady. That's very, very sad. There are 4 different sets of results this year. They could all split. We'll get you a little bit more about that as we work on, of course, bringing James Stanley in to talk about what these results could mean. This is Nate Cohn, and here's what he has to say. "It's not likely to happen, but a perfect political storm is plausible. The Iowa caucuses could be messy. On Monday night, for the first time, there will be 4 sets of results, and there's no guarantee that the same candidate will win them all. For different candidates could even declare victory with the right combination of votes, turnout, geography, and luck. We decided to show how that could be possible." So this is the first alignment. The first measure of the Iowa result is the first alignment or first preference, as it reflects the initial preference of the caucus goers when they arrive at their precinct. Their preference for Iowa voters at this stage has never been publicly available before this year. This is new information here. Let's see. This is a result here that ought to be the closest to the pre-election polls. Let's suppose the first preference happens to come as close to the result of the recent polls. Bernie Sanders in the lead at 22.7%, Joe Biden just behind at 21.9%. Pete Buttigieg at 21.9%, Joe Biden at 21%, Warren at 15.7%, and Klobuchar at 8.7%. So this then will lead to the final alignment. The second measure is called the final alignment or second alignment, whatever. And it reflects the preference of caucus goes after the support of non-viable candidates. So sub 15% candidates have to get out of the race. Usually a candidate needs 15%, and again, in precinct to be viable. It's easy to imagine how the results of the second alignment could be quite different from the first. So if you got all Amy Klobuchar supporters dispersing, all Andrew Yang supporters dispersing, all Tulsi supporters dispersing, whatever the case may be, it's easy to imagine how the results of the second alignment, they could be quite different. So the candidate who led on the first alignment could fall behind under a few conditions. The candidate's support could be geographically narrower, leading the candidate to fall behind and fall beneath viability in more precincts than the nearest rival. The candidate might also fare worse among former supporters of non-viable candidates and allowing another candidate to leap behind. So, for example, say in this final alignment possibility, Joe Biden edges out the lead, takes 28.5 to 28.1%. Biden advances on the second preference in the hypothetical for 2 reasons. His support is geographically broad. He clears viability in 90% of precincts, allowing for him to keep an overwhelming share of his support in the first alignment. Sanders has somewhat narrower geographic support and clears viability in 80% of precincts. He may fall short of the vote in may fall short in some vote-heavy suburban areas. Biden also benefits from the geographical distribution of the second-tier candidates in the hypothetical. Klobuchar falls short of viability nearly everywhere, and her support largely breaks to Biden. Warren, on the other hand, remains viable in precincts containing around half of the vote, denying Sanders his most obvious source of upside. Where viable, she does well on the second alignment, keeping her vote share intact overall. So if those few cases that she is not viable, it could be tough. So it could really be kind of a perfect storm. Here's the third measure, the state delegate equivalency. Each precinct caucus selects delegates to county conventions based on the results of the final alignment. The results are translated into estimates of how many delegates each candidate will earn at the state convention as what's known as state delegate equivalents. The candidate with the most state delegate equivalents is traditionally the winner of the Iowa Caucuses, and in 2020, the New York Times, along with most news media organizations, will again characterize the candidate with the most state delegate equivalents as the winner, though we can report all results. So, state delegate equivalents, that could end up being Buttigieg in the New York Times Hannah poll. This is how he stands to benefit. And, of course, then there are the pledged delegates to the Democratic National Convention, awarded based on the number of the state delegate equivalents won by each candidate statewide and by congressional districts. In the past, these results weren't available on election night either. Before this year, the state convention could elect whomever it wanted to the national convention, regardless of the results of the precinct caucus. Now the pledged delegates to the national convention are bound to the state delegate equivalency results, so we know right away who's going to win the most pledged delegates. Strangely enough, though, the candidate with the most state delegates is not guaranteed to have the most pledged delegates here. My brain is already exploding here. This is such a, anyone who's looking at this, honestly, and Bernie Sanders, I say this as a Bernie Sanders supporter up front, and someone who probably, he has one of the best chances to win tonight. And I think this is just the stupidest possible thing. And it's just really amazing. All right, again, we were working on getting James Stanley on and monitoring the results. And those numbers I said, Buttigieg, Biden, Sanders winning, these are all by the New York Times Upshot poll. There are two major reasons there could be a split this late in the stage. One is the 15% threshold to win delegates in a congressional district. If the second-place candidate managed to clear 15% in all four districts while the winning candidate fell short, the second-place candidate would stand a good chance of leaping ahead. The winning statewide candidate will probably clear 15% everywhere, but this scenario is conceivable in such a closely fought contest with so many candidates in the race. It could stand well in the 4th Congressional District, a mostly working-class, conservative, and rural area in the northwestern part of the state. A candidate who won Iowa by dominating liberal enclaves could conceivably do quite poorly here. Nonetheless, in the simulation, all the leading candidates clear that 15% threshold in those areas. The more likely way the pledged delegates could differ from the delegate equivalents hinges on the number of non-competitive candidates earning 15% of the vote. So it's very confusing here. We'll explain it to you the best we can once the results do come in, but we are monitoring this situation for you, of course, very, very closely. One candidate wins 51% of the vote in a district worth one delegate, while another candidate wins. Where am I reading? This is again from the New York Times, the Upshot page here. And we are welcoming on James Stanley just joining us. James, I'll get you in a minute. I'm just finishing here a little bit of an example of what could happen with this craziness, these four different results in Iowa. One candidate wins 51% of the vote in a district worth one delegate, while another candidate wins 60% of the vote in the second district worth four delegates. The decisive winner of a larger second district would easily win statewide, but win fewer net delegates. I don't get this. Can you explain what's going on here at all? Have you heard anything about these four possible results in these Iowa precincts?
No, I actually have not been able to hear too much about it. I'm looking here on the New York Times page. It continues to update, but I haven't seen any results as of yet pop in for some reason.
Okay.
So what was this thing again with the two places with the one candidate could win by 50, one candidate could win by 60?
All right, so I'll pull that back up again. It's really crazy. So you have these. What I was explaining before is like you got the first alignment, which is the first round of voting. Final alignment. It's the second measure of the second measure is called the second alignment or the final alignment, and that's where all the viable, non-viable candidates, the sub 15% candidates, their supporters will go to other places, and Joe Biden would lead that, according to the New York Times Upshot polling. This is again all New York Times Upshot polling. And there's a state delegate equivalency where Pete Buttigieg could win.